right now.
All we can do is
Let's do this. Second to last assembly meeting. Let's go. Welcome, everyone. The Students' Assembly is called to order for our Cycle 12 meeting. As a reminder to everyone, this is our second to last legislative cycle for the academic year. It's been a pleasure working with you all. Please keep in mind that the final deadline for legislation submission this year is Sunday, April 13th. So if you have anything you'd like to be considered in our final cycle, please submit it by then. This cycle is pretty light, but I am aware that next cycle we will have the block funding bill, the line item funding bill, and perhaps the constitutional revision as well. So it might be kind of busy. Let's get into our business for tonight. The minutes for the last meeting of the Students' Assembly are posted in the Assembly channel. Are there any additions or corrections to be made to these minutes? Hearing none, is there any objection to approving the minutes for the last meeting of the Students' Assembly? Hearing none, they are approved. All right, please welcome our guest speaker for this evening, Went Winter, member of the Kansas Board of Regents. Oh, yes,
Do
absolutely.
you want the catch box or something different? There's a microphone.
These ones work better, trust me.
So it'd be funny.
great. We'll try this. Can you all hear me?
Yep.
So my name is Went Winter. I was told that the reason my name is alliterative like that is that my mother, when I was born, my mother looked at me and said, "That kid does not look very smart. I need to name him something that he can remember." So Went Winter stuck. So I want to leave enough time for you guys to ask questions. By the way, about 3 o'clock this afternoon, I couldn't talk at all. I just got off a long bike ride, and this is not my normal voice. So I came very close to just saying, "Sorry, this voice isn't working." So bear with me. I'm going to need to keep my responses rather brisk and quick, which I'm sure disappoints you all. You want a lot of stuff from me. So first of all, let me just explain a little bit about what the Board of Regents does and what it doesn't do. There's 9 people on the Board of Regents. They're all appointed by the governor, but they can't serve unless they are also approved by the majority in the state Senate. So that's the way it is for a lot of appointed positions. So there's 9 of us on the board. We all serve 4-year terms, and then we meet probably about 10 times a year. Not every month, but close. And the job of the Board of Regents is pretty simple. The Board of Regents is the board of directors for six plus state universities: KU, K-State, Wichita, Emporia, Hayes, and Pittsburgh. And the 7th one is the KU Medical Center, which is technically a part of KU. So, and the total budget for those 6 units, those 6 institutions, is about $850 million. We also have some authority over the community colleges. And there's 19 community colleges. In the total budget, when you add up the budget of the community colleges with the Regents institutions, it's about $1.3 billion. So it's by some measurements, it's the largest financed agency in state government. More importantly, for as far as I'm concerned, and I hope for you all, the goal of the Board of Regents is really, really, really important. Much more important now than it was even 4 months ago, as we see the turmoil and the debate and the discussion and whatever else you want to call it. And I won't use some of the words that popped into my mind. But the job of the Board of Regents, when people say, "Well, what's the board do?" I say we have two jobs. Number one, we want to improve the quality and secondly the quantity of higher education. We want more students to pass more courses. So the more course passes we have, the better off, because that means we're educating more people. So we are working very hard to make education to higher level easier to access, and so on. So secondly, we want the quality of that instruction, the quality of that education to improve. So quantity and quality. That's not, you won't find that anywhere in the Board of Regents description of itself, but that's the simple way I try to look at it. So what we do is very, 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 very important. And I added 2 more varies than I normally add because of the political firestorm we find ourselves in. And without getting into it and taking sides, although I have one, I must say that there probably has never been a more important position, a point of time in our country for the use of higher education than now. It's critically important that people feel comfortable and safe going to colleges and universities. It's very important that we provide easier access, think lower tuition, think more, more funding for all scholarships and the like. So that's in short what we do. The other thing somebody told me one time, well, what the board does is the board hires and fires the chancellor and the president. And when I realized that, I thought, oh my God, I'm not up to this task. And if I decide that maybe I want to talk to Doug Girard about his performance, I'd be very careful not to go there because he could always go back and recalculate my GPA. So I don't want to really open myself up to that. I was asked to give you a little background on myself. My grandchildren some of them live here, are 6th generation Douglas Countyans. The Winter family came here from back east in 1854 and have not left. So my mom and dad met at KU. I went to KU. I was in political science undergraduate, and then came here on a football scholarship. I was, like you, involved in student government at Ottawa High School. I was student body president, so I left that job to come up and get an education at KU. And so that's a quick snapshot of my situation. After I graduated from KU, I went the next day. I started law school at KU and finished in 4 years. And so I've been practicing law on and off full time since then. So I've had 3 different jobs or professions, and I would just tell you that the Gallup organization does a lot of polling on a lot of different stuff. And one of the polls they ask people is, tell me the most respected professions in your opinion. What are the most respected? And, typically that might be preachers, something, physicians, et cetera, et cetera. But when you ask that question, that of course also yields the 3 least respected professions, all of which I have been in: lawyer, banker, and politician. So I ran for State House of Representatives in 1982 and lost. And then 2 years later, I won an election to be state senator from Douglas County. And so I served as state senator representing Lawrence, KU, and Douglas County for 10 years. My outlook toward life as a lawyer, you might not be surprised, is toward advocacy. I see the world many times in good things and not so good things and bad things, and I think we all have an obligation to be advocates for the good things, and to try to make sure that the world is aligned correctly and that we're working with each other to improve the lives of ourselves, our families, and our other people, and other people. So that's really what motivated me to run for office. And then after doing that, and I used to be called the senator from KU because as an advocate, my job in the state senate was to push for more funding, more student support, more faculty support, just more financial support for the university as a whole. So when I was approached 4 or 5 years ago with the possibility of being on the Board of Regents, I thought, well, I spent 10 years as an advocate for higher education in KU. back in the state Senate. So I think this would be kind of interesting. So I took the job. That's kind of the background. I was asked to talk about my background a bit. Danae here?
Yes, in the back.
Do you want to ask these questions? Do you want me to?
Sure.
Danae gave.
Sure. Just give me 1 second.
Actually, I've got the, if you don't mind, I'm reading not my questions, but questions that Danae came up with. Is that all right, Danae? Okay, cool. So I've gone through my background, occupations, et cetera. This question is, what motivated you to become involved with the Kansas Board of Regents, and how have your experiences shaped your views on higher education? I really halfway answered that by telling you that advocacy is a very important part of my life. And so being on the Board of Regents and having the opportunity to be on the board to advocate for funding, for the proper policies is really, really important to me. So when I was approached to consider serving on the board, my first thought was, I've done that. My second thought was, no, all of us have an obligation to do better if we can. So I told the governor's office I would be glad to do that. So I went through the confirmation process after the governor was, the governor's appointment was announced. And I was the subject of a little bit of controversy. One of the senators said, what happened to the real Senator Winter? And she was referring to the fact I've always been a Republican, but I was one of those Republicans without a home now. Anyway, I had to go through and explain, well, my political views, my societal views are what they are. And if you didn't want to vote against those views, then fine, that's your job. I ended up actually getting confirmed, obviously. So another question is, in my opinion, what's the biggest challenge currently facing higher education in Kansas? Now can students, faculty, and administrators work together? The biggest challenge, there's two of them. There's what we call the enrollment cliff. Anybody know what the enrollment cliff refers to? Yeah.
Birth rates dropping off, so eventually we're going to hit a wall where our enrollment's going to tank.
Exactly right. So in 2 years, the prediction is that the enrollment numbers in all states, but particularly in Kansas, is going to fall off this cliff. And so we're going to drop, we're just having fewer customers, if you will, for our services, for our education. And that's a concern because, particularly for KU, because KU's underpinning finances are so linked to tuition. We have a lot of good news is with KU, we have a lot of students who want to come to KU, want to stay, and they're paying tuition. So it's better than a lot of the other schools that don't have that kind of tuition support. But we, as people who offer education, and I told you about my philosophy about higher ed and the importance of it. It's really, really critical that we acknowledge that enrollment cliff, and we find ways to attract students to enroll in any of our institutions, especially KU, obviously. And it's very important that when we get students here, we help them succeed. One of the most important initiatives in my time on the Board of Regents is what we refer to as the Student Success Program. In the Student Success Program, at our request, the legislature has funded so far over $15 million in the last 3 years for additional scholarships. Excuse me, scholarships and other support. It used to be back in the day when students got here, they were told, "Here's you pulled your cards and you go to the class and." The professor, this is an exaggeration, but says, I hope everybody does well. I'd like to see him pass. But there's no real feeling of ownership. And we changed that to make sure that all of our teachers, everybody at the universities, sees the student in the middle of all the activity going on. This is all about the student. And so student success is just what it sounds. We've been spending much more money with student scholarship support, with academic support, et cetera, et cetera. Have any of you here noticed or been a part of the increased student support for academic support, et cetera, et cetera? Well, it's happening, and we've had considerable success in the last couple of years in maintaining that higher percentage of students who stay with us. So, and we've basically told the universities, it's your job to educate students. It's your job to see to it they're challenged, but it's really your job to help them succeed. If a student does not succeed, it's our fault. We as teachers, as administrators, need to take that position. We support every student succeeding, and if a student doesn't succeed, that's on us. And that's but that's the attitude that we all have to take if we're going to be successful in this education business. What do you see as the most important priorities for higher education in Kansas in the next 5 years? Well, I already mentioned the enrollment cliff, but we also have a perception problem in higher education. Gallup poll, I mentioned that on the side earlier. Gallup has always done a poll, and they've asked people, do you believe that higher education can help you improve the quality of your life and improve the quality of society? And the answers have been in the 65% range. 65% or so have said, yes, I believe higher education is an important component of making society better and improving my quality of life. You know what that 65% is now? 45. It's taken a precipitous dip. And of course, there's a lot of people sitting around figuring out why that is. But it's clear that there's a perception out there among students and would-be students that higher education just isn't going to do that. Higher education is not going to help me improve my quality of life. And perception's reality. And so we in the Board of Regents and everybody associated with higher education just has to be cognizant of that and lean into that important idea. So I think cleaning up and articulating in the way each of us do. I think each of us who are customers of higher education have an obligation to let people know what's important, what do we think about higher education. So all of you individually, I think, have an important job, but all of us collectively who reap the rewards of higher education have to do the same thing. So whatever, we got to find that what's going on in our society that makes more people put their thumbs down about higher ed. And I think I want to challenge all of you to be a part of that. If it turns out that after every semester that you feel like you're a better person, you're a more stable person, you're a more confident person, then let your friends, your neighbors know. Let people know how important higher education is. And without getting into the debate about all the political discussion that's happening, can you imagine what the world would look like if we did not have higher education? We have to have higher education is even more important than it ever was. So final question is, as a member of the Board of Regents now, how do you view the role of student leaders in shaping policies at the state level? How can students be more involved in the decision-making process? Well, I can tell you the Board of Regents meets regularly with 3 or 4 different student and faculty groups. So, Danae, how many times where's Danae? How many times have you gone to meetings with the Board of Regents? Couple.
I go to KBOR every month, but when we actually met with you, we have that.
Yeah.
Breakfast in December.
So it's a couple times a year for the lunch, and in addition to the regular meetings. So thank you. So we do make it a practice to meet regularly with student government leaders, all 6 of them, 7, because they keep thinking. KU Medical Center has their own student government. So that's what's so important to keep that connection going. Because as I said, with our Student Success Initiative, we've flipped the script, and now we're really paying more attention to how can we find out how students are doing, how students are thinking. You all know all the challenges that you had to go through since COVID, the mental health challenges that we all have. That's important stuff. And so we are in this together in terms of being sure that what we offer students isn't just coursework, it's human development work, and it's human kindness work, and it's work that will make us better people and better neighbors in the future. We do. I passed. Some of you have a list of some of the things that we've done. And in closing, let me just call your attention to a couple of these things. By the year 2030, Kansas is expected to add 54,000 more jobs that require post-secondary education. More than 80% of those will require a baccalaureate degree or otherwise. In 2023, the median earnings of Americans with bachelor's degree were 66% higher than those with only a high school degree. Not that money makes us all happier or kinder, but having the ability, the opportunity to make more money because of our education is very, very important. One of the things that we're most proud of when I went on the board, it wasn't necessarily me, I was one of the voices saying that we need to increase student scholarship aid. So student scholarship aid in 4 years has quadrupled. And again, that's another signal about how I think the focus of the Board of Regents is changing to a student-centered focus. So the rest of these items, if you want some, I'm sure there may be some left over. But we have, generally speaking, starting with COVID, the year after COVID, when there was a lot of one-time money available, university funding went way up. This year, that money has dried up. So we're faced with a challenge. Now, what do we do? And it was fighting and scratching over in the legislature that ended about 2 weeks ago about trying to be sure that we held on to as much money as we could. So this past year, in terms of funding for the universities, was the worst year in about 4 years, but we still managed to get in a 2.5% increase in salaries for a salary pool for all of our professors, teachers, and staff. That's really important because that's what makes the university. It's students who are taught by compelling and exciting faculty and staff. So we have that 2.5% doesn't seem like much, but it's what we really need to be able to keep the best and the brightest here for our students. Thank you. I didn't see anybody fall asleep or fall over. Too close. Any questions?
Any questions for Mr. Winter?
While you're thinking of any, just to tell you, thank you for being involved in student government. Okay.
Here, before we start, it looks like we have some new people. If you are going to speak in the meeting, please wait until you get a microphone. Otherwise, your voice won't show up on the live stream or the recording. And before you ask your question or give your speech, just say your name. And if you have a position in Student Senate or some other organization, say that as well. Go ahead.
Douglas Jamal, Community Center for the Black Student Union.
Hi, Jamal.
Yes. Firstly, thank you for coming to speak with us. I just want to say that we appreciate that. So my question for you is kind of how do you handle advocating for the education system in Kansas while interacting with so many differing opinions on what it should look like? Basically, what type of student I feel is your prerogative is another question behind that.
Good question. I've tried to keep my eye on the ball. What is important for everybody, no matter what position they hold, no matter the political view, is having quality people that work in and teach in our universities. And to get quality people and to keep quality people, it takes money. So when I say that the legislature approved 2.5% increase in compensation, in salaries, that's very, 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 very important. So we have to remember we're in a competitive business where all the other universities around are trying to steal our best and brightest. And so we have to have the financial resources to be able to keep them. Does that answer your question?
Further
Yes.
questions? Yes, up here. Blue shirt.
Colton Morgan, Engineering Student Council Senator, Community Center. So you talked about a lot about public opinion and saying it's kind of going down and whatnot. How has the Board of Regents tried to improve that, and what do they plan to do to improve that?
Well, first of all, we try to keep that in the front of our mind. I'll tell you one thing, that when we're looking all the time to innovate, and that's easy to say and hard to do. But universities used to be very rigid in terms of passing out degrees. We created we expanded the number of students who have a community college certificate, an associate's degree. How did we do that? Well, the president of Pittsburgh State University, a very, very innovative guy, came to us and said, we've looked back about 10 years at the academic record of our students, and we looked only at the students who finished their second year but dropped out in their third or fourth year, didn't complete. And he said, we found 342 students who had passed 60 hours to be juniors, and but who didn't get their degree. In Pittsburgh State, they can only give a baccalaureate degree. And he said, I think we need to give those students who finished 60 hours but didn't graduate, we need to give them an associate's degree, just as if we had a community college embedded here in our campus. And it was a brilliant idea. So now there's 250 more students with a Pittsburgh State degree. We need to do that. We need to recognize also that different certificates, degrees, etc., are important. Not everybody has to have a 4-year degree, a baccalaureate degree. So we encouraged that kind of thinking where we added those degrees for those students. Does that answer your, give you an example?
Further questions? Yes.
My name is Sophie Terry, and I'm a graduate student senator.
Hi, Sophie.
Just last general body meeting or students assembly, we were finishing the details on how student fees would be budgeted out for student services. It was really hard because inflation this year was outpacing the 2% increase that were the guidelines for how much we can increase the fee each year. And I think the policy on that might be a little bit fuzzy with if KBOR is the one that sets that percent increase or if it's KU that sets that percent increase. But I just want to know your thoughts on the feasibility of explicitly including inflation in that percent increase. So saying it should be inflation plus 1% or something like that.
Well, you sound like me talking to my colleagues in the Board of Regents, talking to them. Gee whiz, I was just here talking about how cool it is that we have a 2.5% funding increase. Not cool in the context of a 5% cost of living increase. But you have to celebrate little victories. I would say what's important is to keep fighting for more. The legislature really doesn't respond very much when we say to them, oh, gee, there's 5%, been a 5% cost of living. Everybody knows that COLA's gone up 5%. So we really need not 2.5% for salary increases. We need 5%. Dead silence. And they go back to the room, and then weeks later, we have a 2.5% increase. So it's very hard. But that's back to the advocacy piece that all of us need to be sure we're doing. You all, by the way, thank you for being a part of governance in higher education. It's really, really important. So, and I know you don't have to do it, but thank you for doing it. Does that give you an answer?
Yeah.
I wish I could tell you, oh yeah, gee whiz, I know how to convince people to make COLA go up, but we just have to keep fighting.
Further questions? Prasad. Will you please get a catch box over? Sweet.
Given the state of federal funding towards universities with the NIH cuts, specifically regarding medical research, as well as essentially having of the NSF fellowships available. Are there any plans? Are there any plans from KBOR or the Kansas government generally to kind of subsidize those offsets and keep our talent in house for the state?
The short, disappointing answer is no.
Okay.
And the reason for that is, first of all, we don't know how deep these cuts are going to be. Everybody's waiting to find out. And NIH grants, et cetera, what's the overhead amount? It's just a continual fight. I've never seen, I've been around longer than you all have. I've never seen anything like the political climate that we've got going on here. It's very disappointing. But those people who are going to be able to convince others to change, to not lose our patience with them. We have to keep an open mind, not open to their ideas, but open to having them, asking them what they think and what are their views. The most important thing, I think the most important part of our bodies in terms of persuasion are our ears. We have to let people on the other side, if I'm talking to somebody who's much more conservative than I want that person to know, I care what you think. I want you to tell me, where's it hurt? I want to understand that. So listening and having people know that regardless if we don't think we are on the same wavelength, let them know that we want to understand why they think the way they do. So, and having ourselves go into separate corners and stay there is not the way to solve problems. We need to be, as I said, patient with each other, ask people why they think X, Y, and Z, even though X, Y, and Z may be abhorrent to us, engage. And I think over the long run, the good minds will prosper if we do that. Good?
Further questions? Any other questions? Any other questions? Any other questions? Okay, back to you.
Colton Morgan, ESC Community Center. You mentioned about what advocating we needed to do to ensure that student senate fees might be increased more with inflation and whatnot. I don't know if I missed it, but what group exactly sets the student fee increase?
I'll tell you how. Technically, the Board of Regents must adopt a motion, adopt a position supporting it. But in all the 3.5 years I've been there, every time we consider those fees, we have students, and we ask students from each campus, including housing fees and dining fees and tuition, et cetera, et cetera. And we ask the students what they think. And every single time they tell us, yes, we've considered it, and yes, we support this. So we receive a proposal from the universities on what their fee schedule will be. And so we want to know, have the students looked at it, and does the students support it? And so I don't remember any time where we voted on fees where we did not have student input. And so every time they brought fees to us, the student governance had approved it. Is that not the way you see it?
I was just curious. So the Kansas Board of Regents themselves set what percentage we can increase student fees?
We do not tell the student body and the student senates how much they can increase. We ask you guys on each campus to come back to us with your recommendations on how much you want. Do you want fees increased? And if so, which fees and what amount? So we always have that input when we're voting. And I don't remember a time when we've had a disagreement between the board, what the board thinks is the right fee increase and what the student senates have. Well, thank you all. Thank you again for being here. Thanks very much for what you do. And as I said, I think all of us individually and as a group have to take ownership of the new reality in higher education. We have to be advocates for higher ed. We have to be able to speak and communicate with people on the other side of these discussions. And over time, if we use our ears enough and listen and share ideas and concepts, we will get through this. Because higher education is the only path, the best path that we have to improving the quality of life. And if we don't have an higher education system that functions, we've got some serious problems with our society. So thank you all.
Thank you very much.
Little side question for clarification. About fees, he's talking about general fees or the actual student fees? Yeah, that's the way the ad. This is the ad on top.
I know, but like.
The way I know it is that
This is.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know.
Very nice to meet you. Thank you for your time. Thank you.
Excuse me, sir. Question over here. So,
No, you're good. I just wait. I'm sorry. I just-
I have a question, Alex. Is Fairground the one that's controlling the?
No,
All right. We will move on to the next item on our agenda, which is officer reports. The student body president. Ten minutes.
Okay, thanks again, Regent Winter, for taking the time to come here tonight and talk to us, and for the students to be able to meet one of the regents and learn a little bit more about how the Board of Regents work. So an update on platforms. So we finally have been able to work with KU Athletics and the tent company that they go through on game days to be able to secure a discount for students on game days when they're renting the tents on the hill, because as I've explained before, because of the deal that athletics has, in order to tailgate on the hill on football game days, you have to go through that tent company. So now there's an exclusive student discount for student organizations. There's more information about who to contact to get that discount and reserve those on our Instagram post that we made today. But we're still working on creating that free tailgating space for students. Athletics has said it's something they want to do. They're just trying to figure out, with all the new construction and everything, where's the best place to put it, especially because there's that construction going on at Potter Lake as well, and that's the area where they're planning to do it. So just trying to figure out where to have that and how to have that work to also have a free tailgating area for students as well. Some non-platform related updates. So block funding allocations, the meeting for that was last week. So we allocated block funding, which will be when Hamp gives his officer report, he can tell you more about that. But I was in that meeting, and part of the allocations of those, line is coming up, which Ethan, the treasurer, will tell you more about that and how that works. And then EOF, which I also sit on and will be a part of the allocation of those monies, which Hamp will tell you more about as well. But those are funding things coming up, or that also have happened, that I was a part of. And then last assembly, I told you all about the Student Senate Gala that we were having. Because of some different complications, we're having to kind of switch that around in what we're doing for that. And so there's no longer going to be like this full gala. Instead, before Joint Senate at 6 p.m. here in Alderson, at the Joint Senate meeting, that's when we're going to have like food and drinks and that sort of thing to provide that for Joint Senate. So that's something to look forward to. So that's just 30 minutes before Joint Senate will start. So again, that's Wednesday, April 30th, 6 p.m. here in Alderson. Next week, I have a Board of Regents meeting that I have to go to, and that is being hosted at Pitt State. And then that's pretty much all I've got. Just wanted to remind you all that this is election week. So be sure to go out and vote for yourself. If you're running again, vote for other people who you want to vote for. But just wanted to remind you guys that that's happening this week, and it closes tomorrow at 4 p.m. And then normally the results, like, we've never really known when they're going to be announced, but now the Elections Commission has said they're going to shoot for 6 p.m. tomorrow night is when they're going to announce it. So that's something to look forward to. Any questions?
Any questions for the student body president? Yes. Hey, microphone.
sorry. By joint Senate, I'm assuming you mean just like General Assembly.
No. So joint Senate is different. So the last General Assembly is the Wednesday before that. Joint Senate is when we officially have turnover. So all of the outgoing people, like all the exec members, they'll give their last little speeches, and then the incoming president and vice president will give their little speeches. And so that's the official turning over of it all.
Thank you.
I can talk more about Joint Senate during my officer report. Any further questions? All right, seeing none. Next, the student body vice president. Eight minutes. 10 minutes.
Hello, everyone. It's great to see you all. Full house. First, some updates from me. I have had the privilege, along with other members of Student Senate, to attend the Business Dean Candidate Lunch. So that's been a really cool opportunity just to kind of be more involved in the School of Business and just kind of help kind of impact the decisions that are going on in the school. Additionally, I was able to attend a university student health governance meeting, which is something that was really exciting, getting to know more information about the KU Medical Center and a lot more about what they do. So unfortunately, during the last parking commission meeting, I presented Student Senate's platform to have free 2-hour parking in the front row of the recreation center. Unfortunately, due to some concerns from the parking commission about funding, that proposal was not passed. This past weekend on April 5th, Student Senate organized the big event cleanup for the Weaver Courtyard, which is right next to Weaver Hall, which is across from the Kansas Union. So some updates and progress that happened in that capacity were a lot of weeding was done. They were able to remove some invasive species of vines, which is nice. And then some of the benches out there, they were able to put some stains on it. So that was really nice to get some color in. Additionally, I've been working with the Sustainability Fund for some proposals to have some native trees planted around campus and then some more native plants in the Weaver Courtyard. So I got some feedback on those proposals, and Student Senate will be working with KU Grounds to get more native trees around campus. So those will be up soon now that the weather is a lot nicer and we're into that spring season. Some updates on the Student Senate Hammock Project. So I've been working with Sean Harding, and currently we are waiting for some compliance issues to get resolved. They're currently waiting on some sort of signage so people aren't spending like the night on those hammocks. So just essentially for like safety and cleanliness. So once we get those signs shipped, then we're going to have the hammocks up and ready to go, which is very exciting. Additionally, Student Senate has been working with University Senate President Josh Arpin to create a survey for the Jayhawk Hub platform, which is something that I've been talking about during my officer reports. So this past week, if you've checked your email, a survey actually went out to all faculty, staff, and students in regards to the Jayhawk Hub. So for those of you that don't know, the hub is essentially kind of an idea to centralize all of the student fee resources. So all of the like student fee dollars, we all pay for entities like the rec, dining, other stuff like that. And there's like not really a centralized place to get that information. So I also did have a meeting with Ms. Wamelink, one of our advisors, to kind of get more information about that. And I'll be attending a digital student experience committee meeting to kind of get more information about that as well. And just trying to see how I can help out in the last bit of my term. So please, if you have the chance, please make sure to check your email and fill out that survey. It'll provide us with a lot of invaluable information about kind of how to help kind of consolidate a lot of the resources we have and just kind of make KU home for all 31,000 students of us. And then my last update is on April 22nd, KU Hero and Student Senate will be presenting at the all undergraduate RA meeting. And so essentially I've been partnering with Shalia Marshall from Hero to do a brief informative presentation about how to use Narcan and fentanyl test strips. So this presentation will take place at the beginning of their undergraduate RA meeting. Anyone is welcome to attend that portion, but really looking forward to providing that information, especially working with KU Hero because they've done a lot. So that concludes my report. Are there any questions?
Any questions for the student body vice president? Yes. Can we please get a catch box over for Zad?
What? I wasn't raising.
My name is Amy Cummings. I'm just a member of the community, and I'm an RA. So have you heard anything from housing about RAs being able to administer Narcan? Because everything I've heard so far is we're not allowed to touch residents in any manner.
Yeah, that's a great point that you brought up. That was actually something that I, and along with Danae, especially when we ran, that was one of the platforms we ran under. So I've been working extensively with Sarah Waters and like housing representatives. And unfortunately, you are absolutely right. RAs are not able to be trained on how to use Narcan. It's a liability concern. So the presentation is actually more informational. So it's just to provide general overview about Narcan, a lot of the misinformation that's being spread about it and stuff like that.
Further questions? Yes, could we please get the catch box packs down here?
Hi, I'm a junior senior senator for College of Liberal Arts and Sciences. I also had a question regarding the Narcan. I have also heard of like members of housing. I have my roommate is not an RA, but she's a proctor at our scholarship halls.
Yeah.
And she was recently informed that if there's Narcan like out, but not necessarily like just they have to throw it away because they don't want the university represented as encouraging drug use and therefore like things. Have you heard anything about that in these meetings?
I've
if
not. That's very interesting. Yeah, I know something I was working on was to try and see if we could get Narcan and fentanyl test strips in the AED kits. But unfortunately, exactly like you said, housing and university governance, it seemed like a liability issue. But training and information is highly encouraged. So, yeah.
Any further questions? Yes, Douglas.
This is the first time I've gotten so many questions. So thank you all so much. I love it.
Well, so hearing the Narcan conversation, like I actually didn't know that like having Narcan out like that, like I guess suggests that like people should be doing stuff like that. But you know, I feel like so why is it like a bad thing for Narcan to just be on standby, like in some like a safe location, like
I would say-
liability?
Oh, I was just going to say point of clarification. I don't know if that's the exact justification.
I don't know if
for the
that's
rule,
true
but
either.
Yeah.
That was just a statement. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that would, I don't know if that's like law or if that's just more of like kind of a, you know, I don't know if that's actually their policy
Yeah.
or if that's just something that they're suggesting. I don't want to like speak on
Thank you.
things that I don't
Let's
know
stick
exactly.
with the office report.
Yeah,
Steve,
I
response.
will. I'll answer that. So one thing that I've had in the conversations in regards to Narcan is people could see it as like a traumatic incident if like an RA or someone that is technically a staff of the university were to administer Narcan on a student that may have already passed due to an overdose. And so there is some liability with that, but also like the university is held liable if something bad happens with someone trying to administer Narcan. So I understand their liability. I may not personally agree with that. However, Student Senate is trying to do what they can within their capacity to just kind of spread the information about it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any further questions? All right, seeing none, thank you very much. The graduate student body president. Time? 2 minutes.
Hey guys, my name is Brendan Phelan. I am the graduate student body president here. I have a couple updates or just some brief comments. So last week, I was a part of the block committee and we were able to successfully fund or at least allocate to the Office of Graduate Studies our requests that we were needing. So we're matching staying flat for what we were asking for last year. This is a scholarship that funds over 200 students to be able to attend different research conferences throughout the nation that are conducting research here at the university. It's a great investment into them and has a great return on investment on the university. Additionally, Danae and I attended a tour of the dining halls today with the assistant director of dining at the University of Kansas, and we have started the work on forming a University of Kansas dining advisory board. It's something that I would have a hard time finding a student here on campus who has never had a meal, and so I think this is something that affects all of us. And so having student input that directly impacts the way that the dining operations happen on campus and some of the feedback that we have on food, I believe would be beneficial. It's something that we're looking to get done by the end of the year. And lastly, I am working on with Matea to get my replacement for next year. Many of you may not know that this is a position that is elected by the Graduate Student Advisory Board, and this is something that you have to interview for through that, and then you're appointed to. So it's a position that has to be applied for, whereas the student body president, the student body vice president are elected, whereas the graduate student body president is appointed. So it's something that I've been working on. Is there any questions?
Any questions for the graduate student body president? All right, seeing none, thank you very much. The treasurer. Time. 2 minutes.
Okay, good evening, everybody. Thank you all for being here. I have a few things to touch on. So as the name mentioned, we just did the block deliberations this past week. We were able to allocate roughly $725,000 to different departments at KU. That bill and the outlines of that bill will be presented at finance councils and other councils next week. In addition, we have line application or line block deliberations happening this Friday in the Wheat Room. If you're interested in being a part of that, please email me or Megan by tomorrow night at like 5 p.m. so we can get that all situated. Really appreciate your insights and anyone that wanted to join. You're happy to join. And then other than that, I have the update on the Wednesday night fund. We only have 2 funding bills today, and the current state of the fund is $12,969. And then if you're wondering where the money will go, anything left in this account will go back to helping the deficit we currently have in Student Senate. Yeah, any questions?
Any questions for the treasurer? All right, hearing none, thank you very much. Hold on, just let me get this back up. Yep.
Hello, everyone. My name is Hamp Henning. I am the Fund Development Director here. Couple updates on some of the projects that I've been working on. So as Danae mentioned, EOF's finally back on track now that the fee package proposal has gone through. So the dates that I've been talking with Union and the members of the board that are seated on it for this coming year, looks like this is likely going to be happening on Monday, the 21st, that evening. So we'll be hoping to have that wrapped up before the end of April here. It looks based on today, I finally got the finalized number for the amount of money that the EOF is going to have to allocate. And that looks like it's going to be right around the $184,000 mark. So just kind of keep that in the back of your mind as we're starting to work through some of the deliberations there. Besides that, as Ivana brought up, the Sustainability Board had a meeting last Friday. We were able to fund $3,500 to the native tree project here that Senate's been working on. In addition to a project that we partnered with the CCO on. So CCO, the Center for Community Outreach, their Earth division has been working. They manage our community garden here over on West Campus, and we were able to give them funding to build a shed on the garden that's managed by students for the community in order to house produce that will then be donated to the campus cupboard to be donated to students. So that was a really good project to work on, and I'm happy to see that that was able to be funded. Other than that, the last community development fund cycle is approaching here. So if you know of any groups that would like to apply for funding, or if you're a member of one of those groups yourself, the deadline for the last day to apply for that is this coming Friday. So get those applications in, and that's all I got.
Any questions for the Fund Development Director? All right, seeing none. Next up is my officer report. Megan, I have 5 minutes, please. All right, good evening, everyone. As I mentioned near the start of the meeting, the academic year is coming to a close. I'm going to pull up a calendar real quick. Yep. All right. How do I, there we go. All right, so coming up on the 16th is the last council meetings. We will have elections for council officers during that time, I believe, right? Yep. So that'll be chairs, vice chairs, secretaries, maybe associate senators too. I forget if those are done at the end of this semester or the start of the next semester. But council officer elections on the 16th. Those will be the last meetings of the student councils for this academic year. The 23rd will be the last meeting of the Students' Assembly where we actually consider legislation. So again, if you have any bills or resolutions that you want to be heard before the end of the academic year, please have those submitted by this Sunday, April 13th. And then at the second previous Student Executive Council meeting, we set the date for joint Senate at April 30th. As the student body president mentioned, this is a time for the outgoing and incoming members of Student Senate to meet together. We'll hear exiting and entering speeches from the executive officers, and we will elect the new speaker, the new internal affairs director, the now new city commission representative, as well as representatives to University Senate and the University Senate Executive Committee. So this should be a really great time, and we hope you all will join us there to round out the year. This is assuming that there are no issues with these Senate elections. If there are issues with these Senate elections, like protracted disputes, we may consider moving the date back, but hopefully no further than the end of classes this semester. I think we would all rather have that all handled before we have finals. And yeah, that will be pretty much it for Student Senate for the academic year. It's been a pleasure. For Student Executive Council, we are no longer considering disciplinary proceedings for attendance policy violations since we are so close to our last cycle. So StudEx has pretty much just been going over the assembly agendas. We also added on a bill to this cycle from the KU Women Educated Club. This was previously generated in the Community Affairs Council, but we had some concerns, some procedural concerns. So StudEx decided to generate it on top of that to make sure that it can be heard tonight. And that's about it. Are there any questions?
Do you have any questions for the speaker?
Oh, I should add, also, hopefully the last Constitutional Review Committee meeting is tomorrow at 6:30 p.m. Where is it, Emma?
I think it's in the Centennial Room.
Yep.
Any questions? All right, seeing none, thank you, Chris.
Last Constitutional Review Committee meeting tomorrow, 6:30 p.m. in the governor's room. And I believe that's 5th floor, Kansas Union. The Internal Affairs Director? Nothing to report. Nothing to report from the Internal Affairs Director. I have been informed that our candidate for replacement senator, Rhea, is no longer interested in serving on Student Senate for the remainder of this academic year. Accordingly, is there any objection to removing this appointment from the agenda for tonight? All right, hearing none, I'll go ahead and get that removed. All right. We are now looking at our consent legislation for tonight. We have two funding bills. First up, Bill 2025-063, a bill to fund the Ukrainian Student Association and the International Women's Association. This is for each club $100 of general funding. So this is what Student Senate provides for office supplies, printing, basic event materials, stuff like that. It is the first funding bill I've ever seen that wants to fund two separate clubs at the same time, so that's exciting. It is $100 for each club, or $200 total. And second up is Bill 2025-065, bill to fund Women Educated KU, and that is just $61, I believe, for supplies for informational materials. If there are any questions about specific bills, I can pull them up. And if we have any representatives from the clubs here, we can hear from them. But yeah, sure. Which one?
Both of them.
Okay. So this is Bill 2025-063. Just basically describes the purposes of these two clubs and what they will utilize the general funding for. So this is promoting materials of the associations, such as stickers. That's for Ukrainian and International Women's Association. And then the bill for the University of Kansas Women Educated Club is for events later in April and early in May. Other fundraising efforts, bake sale on Musco Beach. This is for $61, and this includes envelopes, stamps, and printing. This used to have a line on it for a Canva Pro subscription, which would have bumped the cost up to about, I think, $181. But unfortunately, with KU's payment methods, we are unable to provide Canva Pro subscriptions. One, because the website just really doesn't want to accept them, and two, because since they're a subscription, it would mean leaving KU's payment information on their account, which is really not good for security reasons. So yeah, $61 and $200 total, $261. Are there any questions about this consent legislation? Yes, in the back. Motion to vote. Motion to vote. Second. Are there any objections to approving the consent legislation? Hearing none, bills 2025-063 and 2025-065 are passed. We will proceed to our next and last item of regular legislation, Resolution 2025-306, a resolution to recognize the ongoing genocide in Palestine. We have our presenters. Hold on one second. 20. I'm going to go ahead and give you 30 because I'm expecting questions.
Is the presentation up here, Chris?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, let me get it real quick. Thanks. For our two concurrent viewers, the live stream is back on. All right. Hey. Before you start, I'm going to give a little spiel about decorum because I feel like I gotta.
Yeah. Oh, can you do it via slides? So we have like elements that show up over time.
Yeah, sure. I have it saved in my Teams.
Yeah. There's going to be slides that look
I did just save the PDF, so whatever's on the PDF is what I swear to God is whatever they're seeing.
Then they'll see some slides don't make sense.
Sweet.
Yeah, that works.
Okay, so this is your presentation and this is your resolution. I'll ask you to go ahead and pull this up if anyone has questions about the text or just once you finish up your talk. We'll zoom in a bit so people can actually read it. All right, here's your resolution, or here's your presentation. Display me off.
Chris. Oh, sure.
I like just did like a minute.
I don't know which microphone it is. Yeah. Okay. If I'm stand this one. It might as well. Just don't get the line. Yeah.
We're ready.
And for saying our name.
All right, we're ready to get the meeting started. Everyone, please resume your seats. Okay, before we get started, a quick note on decorum. I understand that we have some speakers in opposition here tonight. This is fine. This is great. Feel free, ask questions. We'll get to this speech in opposition. For questions, please keep your arguments until the speeches. And please be sure to remain respectful. Everyone here, be respectful, avoid engaging in personal attacks. If I hear any indecorous questions, we'll move to the next question. If I hear any indecorous speeches, we'll move to the next speech. That's about it. If there are any outbursts, I will assume a motion to expel you from the room. Oh, yeah, sure. That would be great. Thank you very much. Sure. We will hear from the contributing authors to this resolution. The presenters are recognized for 30 minutes.
Thank you all. I want to thank you all for your time and for hearing us here today speaking on this resolution to recognize the ongoing genocide in Palestine.
Hello, I am Daniel. I am the Vice President of both Students for Justice in Palestine and Jewish Students for People's Liberation.
I'm Anya. I'm the Secretary for Jewish Students of People's Liberation.
I am Linnea, the Secretary for Students for Justice in Palestine.
Hello, I'm Maya, a fourth year computer science, and I am the president of Students for Justice in Palestine this semester.
My name is Jack Shaw, and I'm the vice president of KUYDSA.
All right, so let's talk about the big subject. What is genocide? Well, according to the Rome Statute of the International Criminal Court, genocide means any of the following acts committed with the intent to destroy in whole or in part a national, ethnical, racial, or religious group as such. A, killing members of the group. B, causing serious bodily or mental harm to members of the group. C, deliberately inflicting on the group conditions of life calculated to bring about its physical destruction in whole or in part. D, imposing measures intended to prevent births within the group. Or E, forcibly transferring children of the group to another group.
I would like to make it clear that any subset of these do constitute a genocide due to the Rome Statute. So first we are going to talk about Gaza. At the current moment, Israel has broken the ceasefire agreement that was put in place. They started bombing civilians and massacring children, and subsequently destroying the existing path to peace that was put in the way. At the current moment, according to the Palestinian Health Ministry, Israel has killed at least 62,000 Palestinians. This number is probably in the hundreds of thousands, given that there are still people under the rubble that they cannot account for. On the Palestinian Health Ministry's site, they have the names, ages, and gender of everyone that has been martyred during this genocide. It's really hard to not notice the first couple of pages all being under the age of 0. So suffering in Gaza, almost everyone is sick or injured in Gaza. There's no clean water. So I would say it is estimated that Gaza has the largest population of children who are amputees as well. And then Israel is targeting protected groups. So far, they have killed 333 humanitarian workers. 170 journalists have been killed. Hospitals have been bombed. Most cultural heritage sites have been destroyed, including mosques during Ramadan. Almost all schools and universities have been bombed and destroyed, impeding their education in Gaza. And then mass sexual violence has been put onto Palestinians. This image that we were looking at is the aftermath of the Flower Massacre last March, in which Israel killed 112 Palestinians in one bombing that were waiting humanitarian aid. And so, the UN states that the policies and practices of Israel are consistent with the characteristics of genocide. The ICJ says as a result of the Israeli military actions, the very existence of the Palestinian people in Gaza is at stake. Amnesty International says Israel has committed genocide against Palestinians in Gaza. The Human Rights Watch says Israeli authorities are responsible for acts of genocide. Jewish Voices for Peace says it's a textbook genocide. And then Holocaust survivors are saying never again for anyone means never again for anyone.
Secondly, we have the settlements. 620,000 Israeli settlers are displacing Palestinians and their communities in the West Bank, East Jerusalem, and the Golan Heights in more than 280 permanent settlements. These illegal settlement activities include occupying homes, assaulting people living there, torture, sexual violence, stealing belongings, destroying property, death threats, and more. And this 100% violates international law. This image here is of a Palestinian family in front of their illegally demolished home as a part of the illegal Israeli settlement activities. And so, first we have from B'Tselem, it contravenes international humanitarian law. The ICJ, the state of Israel's continued presence in the occupied Palestinian territory is unlawful. Amnesty International contravenes fundamental rules of international humanitarian law. The EU, it erodes prospects for a lasting peace. The UN genocide as colonial erasure, and the Lemkin Institute, it is a slow structural genocide. This deliberate, forcible uprooting, expulsion, and ethnic cleansing of Palestinians through illegal settlements constitutes a genocide.
Thirdly, apartheid. Apartheid is an institutional system of racial segregation and a form of genocide as established under the international law. It is also considered a crime against humanity. This is an image of a vigil for Nelson Mandela in Palestine. Amnesty says it's a cruel system of domination and a crime against humanity. JVP, brutal reality of Israel's apartheid regime over Palestinians. B'Tselem, the Israeli regime enacts in all the territory it controls an apartheid regime. Human Rights Watch denying millions of Palestinians their fundamental rights. HRW, ICJ, Israel's policies and practices amount to segregation or apartheid, and the UN, apartheid is not, sadly, a phenomenon confined to the history books on Southern Africa. This blatant conduct to make Palestinians second-class citizens through an apartheid system constitutes genocide.
So in case it wasn't clear, this is a genocide. Yes, Israel has killed tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of Palestinians. Yes, Israel has caused serious bodily and mental harm to the Palestinians. Yes, Israel has deliberately inflicted on the Palestinians conditions of life calculated to bring about their destruction. Yes, Israel has deliberately prevented births of Palestinians through sexual and reproductive violence. And yet, the United States, on the federal level, hasn't called this a genocide. We're actively arming and abetting it. The state of Kansas hasn't called this a genocide. They're just following in the federal government's footsteps. KU hasn't called this a genocide. And we're a powerful institution. We're a D1 school, a Research One university, the flagship university of the state of Kansas, the largest landholder in the state, and we have a history of this. That image there is KU students marching with a banner that reads, KU invest in Kansas, not in racist South Africa. There's a history of KU students standing up to apartheid. I want to invite you all to scan this and go to page 42, and you'll see testimony from a KU student by the name of Jane Ungerman before the United Nations in 1986. And what she describes there feels all too real today. As a part of the Kansas University Committee on South Africa, or KUSA, which, by the way, was founded in 1978, and apartheid did not end until 1990. She details an 8-day sit-in at Strong Hall, dozens of arrests, a 3-week camp-in at Endowment, and an institutional hesitancy to act. This isn't new. See, it's easy to tell ourselves that, in theory, we would have been on the right side of history for a given issue, for a given situation. But what we actually do now matters a lot more than what we might have done. It is far easier to be neutral now than in retrospect, to say that I don't want to touch this issue or I just don't know enough. This resolution means now you do. See, we learn of South African apartheid today in our history classes and understand it to be what it was, an atrocity. So when your progeny learn about this genocide in their history classes, and they ask you, what did you do to stop it? What will you say? Will you look them in the eyes and tell them, I did nothing and I had the chance to? Look, this university's representative body has not yet been heard on this issue. So this is a chance to do something, to say something, now, meaningfully. And this can be the start to substantive, serious, material change at this university. Passing this resolution would speak the truth in a place where others here are not doing so. And if not you all, then who? If not now, then when? And if not through this, then how? A chorus starts with one voice and one song, and a room full of silent people rings out very clearly. Perhaps those who remain silent will feel the impetus to join in the cacophony. And so we call on you now to follow in the footsteps of Jayhawk's past and make it clear that genocide is unacceptable. The rest of our time is yours. Thank you very much.
Questions for the presenters? Yes?
Thank you all so much for your presentation. I'm curious, from an audience perspective, why are each of you here presenting for this legislation?
I suppose we can go down the line. I'm here because I know that in and of itself, what's happening in Gaza is objectively awful. And if I have any power to speak up against this, in the belly of the beast, in the place where these arms and bombs are coming from, then I ought to do so. But I also know what happens there doesn't stay there. What's being used against them, the tactics being used against the Palestinians doesn't just stay there. The IDF comes and trains our police forces. The bombs that don't get used there might get sent elsewhere. We have to keep in mind, this isn't an isolated thing happening on the other side of the world. There are Jayhawks there, at least one that we know of. So there are connections everywhere you look to this place. So speaking up on it, I feel like not just now, but anytime you can is more important than ever.
Well, first of all, I'm deeply honored to be here to represent a cause that I have been committed to since, the very beginning of my high school career and now in college. My family were one of the few, Spanish Jewish folk that were kicked out back in 1492 and forced to flee. My family then stayed over a long time in the Mediterranean before eventually settling in Mexico around the 1600s. My family was also one of the very few Jewish families that were at gunpoint forcibly either forced to convert, as my great grandfather says it, back when the Cristeros were occurring in the 1920s. But just to say, Judaism is very important to me. My faith teaches me to have compassion and empathy towards others and to view each others as equal, no matter what. You are all people that have the right and have the ability to fulfill their lives in any way that they see fit. Because I view all of us as a member of the human species. We must have tolerance, we must have kindness, and we must have empathy. And if you don't have that basic fundamental empathy to see the bodies of children who are amputees, who are viciously murdered by bombs halfway across the world, how can you look yourself in the mirror and say, I'm a good person? How can you see the violence that is occurring in Gaza and not be reminded of our own past? Of not even seeing how Gaza has been turned into the world's largest open-air concentration camp and not be able to reflect and see the horrific scars of our own past.
So I was first introduced to what was happening in Palestine back in 2021 when Israel began another one of its coined terms called mowing of the lawn. This was from, I believe, May 10th to May 21st, where they started bombing Gaza again. This was the first time I ever heard about it. And then throughout the years, when I came to school, of course, the genocide started up again. And so I got into activism here. And during the time, I have been able to talk with so many people that I didn't think I would be able to talk to. Right now, as the president of Students for Justice in Palestine, I am communicating with a fellow Jayhawk who is in Gaza right now. She lost her home after the bombing started in October. Her name is Farah. She was here in 2023. She was an architecture design student. When I look at her pictures on her Instagram, I see that she was at the Raven bookstore, which is a bookstore I love to frequent. She also was in so many of the same study rooms in Slauson and LEAP and engineering that I have studied for my midterms there. So seeing someone go through the most devastating attacks in our recent history and to see our school not support them is kind of disheartening to me. I am also communicating with the Gaza Food Relief Project. It's an initiative in North Gaza who is trying to get water and food for children. So far, we have been able to donate $1,500 to them, and they have been able to get so much water and food to children during the month of Ramadan and for Eid. And it's just really nice to see all that. So that is why I'm here. I don't want to see children dying anymore.
I am a history student. I've always loved history ever since I was a little kid. One of the most common themes that you hear of in history time after time again is these sorts of stories of one group committing mass destruction and genocide on another group. And one of the things that you ask yourself is, or tell yourself is like, if I was there, I would most certainly help the people who were suffering there. I would stand up for them. I would give them food. I would shelter them. I have the opportunity right now to do that. So that is why I am here presenting this to you. Stand up for these people. Put your foot in the door. We are a major institution. You are a person. You know of these things happening to other people. Help them. Stand up for them. Advocate for them. Do not let yourself fall victim and fall into the tracks of the oppressors. Don't do that. That is why I am here.
My family comes from, or I come from a line of Soviet Jews who escaped the Soviet Union in the 90s. We ended up in Germany, and that's where I was born. I moved to America when I was 6. And my Judaism is a really important part of my life, but in the past few years, I've felt underrepresented in organizations that I once found community and representation in. And as a member of the newer organization, Jewish Students for People's Liberation, that is our goal, to promote exactly that, to have a place for leftist Jews, for diasporic Judaism on campus, so no one else has to experience what we have, underrepresentation and a lack of a home base, because it can be really isolating, especially in a majority Christian state. So that's why I'm here.
Before we get into the next question, brief aside, the attendance form for all of our Senate members is up in the Assembly voting channel. Please fill that out already if you haven't. Sorry. Next question. Next question in the back there. Could we please get a catch box pass back? Thank you, Shay.
Okay, so you guys mentioned the children dying in Gaza, but can you clarify why the actions of Hamas, which is a designated terrorist organization, is not mentioned in the resolution, and why the Americans who are still held hostage in Gaza are not mentioned?
Can we hear your name, please? Sorry.
Allison Weinberg is my name.
Yes. So this resolution, let's be clear, is about an ongoing genocide. And we don't have to like the party that committed an act of war against the state of Israel. But an act of war does not justify an act of genocide. The U.S. sells arms to Israel. We have the power to undercut this genocide. But yes, uplifting the voices of hostage, you absolutely have the power to do. And I'd encourage you all, if you'd like to, propose your own resolution, condemn Hamas. This resolution focuses on the ongoing genocide. And so this massively disproportionate violence, the concerted, continuous, deliberate action to eliminate a people is bad. It is lamentable, and it is why we are condemning it here. Full stop. Let's not forget that.
Further questions? Yes, behind you.
Hi, I'm Polly Johnston, and I just wanted to ask, since Hamas is the ruling party within Gaza, and you did say it was an act of war, how does that not constitute war in general for all of Gaza?
Well, I think collective punishment is a war crime. And so the idea that an act of war justifies starving children, women being given their children back, mothers being given their children back, not in body bags, but in garbage bags and shopping bags because they've been blown to bits by our munitions. If you were targeting military targets, that's one thing, but it's not enough to say that Hamas may have been in this refugee camp that we bombed. It's not enough to say that Hamas may have been in this cancer hospital, the only one that was left standing in Gaza at that point. And so we bombed that. It's not enough to say that Hamas may have been in the universities that were left in Gaza, because now none are left in Gaza because they've all been bombed. This mowing of the lawn, this razing of an entire area does not at all equate to response to an attack. An attack can be condemned. A genocide is a stain upon history.
Further questions? Well, hold on one second because you had a question first. Are there any further questions? Yes, in the back here. Hold on. Wait till you get your catch box and remember to say your name.
Hello. Okay, my question is
Name.
Ben Weiner. My question is yes, we've heard a lot about what's going on currently. I during the entire presentation, there wasn't a single mention of the events on October 7th with Hamas. Why is none of that in the resolution whatsoever about why any of this occurred? And will SJP or the organizations up there denounce what happened that day and denounce Hamas as the terrorist organization? Because I feel like that's pretty important within the resolution.
Yes, I can, and I just have. With that being said, there's still an ongoing genocide. I feel like I've responded to this question pretty significantly. Would anybody else like to say anything? Daniel?
Again, like Jack said, there's an ongoing act of genocide, one singular attack that, was horrific. No one will deny that. It was pretty bad. People died. It's a horrific tragedy that should be denounced. But again, there is an ongoing genocide, a specific targeting of a people being wiped off the face of the earth. I think that is of way more magnitudes of importance. An entire group of people are being killed deliberately by a state. I just did.
Hold on. Keep the order. Hands up for questions. Hands up for questions.
Can I actually answer that as well?
No, we're going to move on to the next question. I see a question over here from Senate member.
Tanya? Got it. Okay. Hi, my name is Tanya Sang, and I'm a senator from the law school. I guess my question was, could you compare the events of October 7th to say like the 1948 Intifada or previous acts of aggression against Palestinians, especially like the 2016 expansion and settler colonization, and compare those to the acts of October 7th?
That's an interesting question. And I don't want to speak to something that I haven't done the proper research on. But I will say that the attacks there, even if you want to condemn them, which I think you can and should do, comparison to past events, I think is a bit dubious because I don't want to say, yes, it is like this thing. And thus people hear it's the same as this thing. I think, again, the focus is the ongoing genocide, and ending that, I think, is the first and foremost goal.
Yeah, so I do see some kind of importance in the comparison of those events. So earlier, one of the questions kind of asked about the history of Palestine and Gaza. So before October 7th happened, Gaza was under a system where they were not able to leave the strip of land 25 by 5 miles wide. It's about a little bit smaller than Lawrence, Kansas. I want you to imagine for a moment you're in Lawrence and there's bombs falling all around you. Where would you feel safe to hide? Would you? But to compare these events, can I clarify, were you talking about like the 1948 Nakba? Yes. Okay. Awesome. Yeah. So during the 1948 Nakba is when an expulsion of 750,000 to 1 million Palestinians happened during Israel colonizing the land of Palestine. So they forcibly expelled and raided all these Palestinian villages and homes that lived there. So I would say that compared to the 750,000 to 1 million Palestinians that were displaced from their homes, yeah, I would say it's definitely worse.
And for those interested in learning more about the Nakba, the resolution has, if you control F, Nakba, a fact sheet from Jewish Voice for Peace that explains the historical event and the tragedy.
All right, hands up for further questions. If there are any Senate members, I'll give preferential recognition. If not, let's go to the end of the second to last row.
Hi, my name is Brenna Gross. Do you acknowledge that Israel's bombing is a response to indiscriminate rocket fire by Hamas on civilians?
No. Proportionate response would be to take out military targets. Disproportionate genocidal response would be to bomb the sites that I listed before, the sites listed in the resolution, the sites that I'm too frustrated to name now, and committing an act of genocide. Response to that would be to take out the rockets. Israel's response has been to take out everybody within the Gaza Strip who happen to exist in the same place as those rockets.
I would also like to ask about the disproportionate nature between the Israeli IOF government and the military weapons that they have versus the military weapons that Hamas has. Hamas is only using bombs and weapons that have been dropped on them. They repurpose it, versus Israel is continuously being paid by the United States of America, by our academic institutions. We give trillions of dollars to Israel to fund their genocide. So I think it's really hard to compare a group that was created because of Israelis, because of the IOF, repeatedly murdering them, pushing them away from their homes, versus a group that was created to systemically target Palestinians.
All right, are there any for? Yes? Hang on, I was pointing to the person behind you.
Tanya?
Yeah, sorry.
Hi again, guys. Given the recent answer.
Hold on. Is this just another question? I'm sorry, I thought you had a motion.
Oh, I can make a motion. Can I move to vote then?
Are you moving to vote?
Yes.
Okay. All right, hold on. Is there a second on moving to vote? If there is a motion to vote, then we have to handle that first. Second from the chair of the Community Affairs Council. Are there any objections to proceeding to a vote? I see objections. Okay, in that case, we will get the motion to vote posted.
That makes me sound really like, that would be fun. Also, what
1 minute.
are the rights?
All right, the poll is now up in the Assembly voting channel. If you are having trouble voting and you are a voting member, please come up to the front table and we will get you sorted. This will be a 1-minute vote.
Hey Chris, I want to vote.
Huh?
I want to vote.
You have voting rights.
No.
Okay. In that case, we can't count it.
God forbid a woman want to. God forbid I want my separate. Are we having fun? Am I slaying? Guys, I think I'm slaying. I think this is my job now. This is so fun. Douglas, you didn't look like you thought I was slaying. Is that why you don't say hi to me in the morning? No, my phone's on the table. Are you texting me now?
No. They're voting to see if
You should see me. I'm locked in.
Hey,
Then help
when
me
it's
that-
time to
so we can give me that essay problem beforehand. You don't need to learn. You just need
No,
to
yeah, not yet.
you just need to get out of there. Trust me, no one's having fun. Besides the guy sitting next to me, he's having a great time. I don't know what that guy's up to. He pulls up my chair for me every day, though. He goes, who does
Yes.
Yeah,
So
yeah, I
further
did.
questions from her, just.
I got you. I didn't not fully understand that. Smile, you handle that.
Oh, you have it with my boy. My boy sits all the way in the corner.
Yeah.
You were in his lab, you would know.
Yeah,
I appreciate you being like, that's what matters.
Well,
What? Are you gossiping? You're gossiping.
But I was like, I want to hear this. I'm excited. So far, Sophie. Sophie. No, it's Sophia. She's like my Sophie. Yeah.
Yeah, fun.
It's probably cool.
That's how you spend your night.
Yes.
Everyone already has an idea.
You need to do evidence to do this. Right. And there's but we should give them opportunity to hear them out. Yeah.
I think if they want to bring evidence, more than having anything else. But if there's anyone else hates them being like, oh,
Thanks for objecting. I was going to object too. I was like, we need to, yeah. I was like, they came all this way. Yeah.
Look at my big side. Ready? Let me do my side.
I'm excited. And honestly, like, there's Aristotle
Make me
proposed
do that
three ways
thing.
to
What if I
do
get wrinkles?
ethos, pathos, and logos, you know? Logic, logos
But I
might
get
work for you,
lines
but
here.
ethos and pathos might influence other people. So, yeah. You're also an educated, logical person, so.
the biggest thing for me is like, I think that most people already have
Yeah.
They're already passionate about it.
Because I don't want to. I like street levels. I don't like the way they talk.
If they're passionate about their opinion,
They're just all trying to like get a one up on you.
Yeah, I realize they're passionate.
I don't know your last name.
Everyone's very passionate. All of that.
The meeting will be back. The meeting will return to order. Please resume your seats. On the motion to end debate for Resolution 2025-306, in favor 19, opposed 27, abstaining 1. Accordingly, the motion is not carried. We will continue the presentation. I believe the presenters had 8 minutes remaining on the clock at the time the motion was made. Could we please have hands in the air for questions? Yes, I see a question from Douglas. Are you sure you want to move that now, or are you all right? Because we have 8 minutes left on this clock. Okay. In that case, up here, please.
Hi, Emma Hardesty, College of Liberal Arts and Sciences Junior Senior Senator. I know you partially answered this question in Student Rights and Affairs, but I thought the answer was so informative that I thought I would ask again in General Assembly just so everybody else could hear it. But I was wondering, your resolution just calls for a denouncement of the genocide, but I was wondering if you had considered including anything calling for the University of Kansas to divest in Israel, specifically like weapons, military things, any sort of relationships we have with them, especially financially.
I appreciate the question. Our group's position on that would be yes, that they ought to, but this resolution does not include that, and that is an intentional choice, and I'll tell you why. We want to recognize first the reason that we would be divesting. We do not speak of Israel like this because of some exceptional quality. We speak of it like this because it is committing a genocide, and genocide is lamentable. I don't know what else I can say on that idea. But other universities have made moves like those you described. Brown, Columbia, Northwestern, Pomona, Stanford, UC Berkeley, UC Davis, UCLA, Michigan, Virginia, Tufts, Harvard Law, Wayne State, and others all officially called for divestment. Big 12 schools, Houston and Arizona, find themselves in that number. Additionally, Cincinnati has passed a resolution similar to ours recognizing the ongoing genocide. And UCF, West Virginia, Houston, Arizona State, Cincinnati, Baylor, Texas Tech, Colorado, Arizona, Utah, Iowa State, K-State, and BYU have all made similar demands, or at least their student organizations have. So we feel that recognizing this violence as such, recognizing the genocide as such, is a precondition to action like that, because that would be the basis, the motivating factor for such divestment.
Further questions? Yes, over here.
Hi, Sahej Parmar, not a student senator. Can you guys speak, historically at least, to the disproportionate level of violence levied against the Palestinian people in comparison to, say, casualties on the Israeli side?
I can, and I want to pass this down to others as well, because they may have more. But I'll at least say this, the casualty numbers and the creation of, well, you know what, I'm going to pass it down to them. They all have better things to say.
So, historically speaking, the state of Israel has, since its inception, have always pursued a policy of removing the identities of the Palestinian peoples, to completely erase their history, to erase their distinct regional variant of Arabic, to remove any and all semblance of Palestine from the collective consciousness. We've seen this multiple times from by the state of Israel promoting archaeological digging sites to disprove Arab of the Palestinian people even existing within Palestine until the 1500s. We've seen multiple academic movements erasing the beautiful and unique relationship that biblical Hebrew had with its equivalent Aramaic. We've seen multiple times the erasure of the Mizrahi Jewish folk, or Arab Jews. We've seen multiple attempts to erase just any semblance of deviation that is not seen by the Israeli state as proper. We've seen a demand for a complete unified structure. It's not only a semblance of violence unto itself, but it also is occupied by relentless attacks upon the Palestinian peoples by removing their right to vote and other rights.
I would also like to say, just during this ongoing genocide, we see catastrophic amounts just from the Palestinian side in general. Already, 62,000 dead people counteract the amount that have died within Hamas versus IOF standoffs. IOF is Israeli Offensive Forces, or the IDF, Israeli Defense Forces. It is their military. So we already see disproportionate acts. So far with the martyrs in Gaza, 1 in 3 from the Palestinian Health Ministry have been children. So we see disproportionate attacks on children in Gaza. Even in the West Bank, they murder and bomb in the West Bank as well.
Point of information from Wikipedia. When you search this conflict, the death toll on the Israeli side is about 1,000, and then on the in Gaza, it's like 500,000 plus.
Further questions?
Chris, I have a motion to end this and move on to the next speech.
We do have 2 minutes and 30 seconds left, so that's like one more question.
Okay.
Hands in the air for questions. Are you a student senator? Okay, we'll go over here.
Good evening. My name is Ivana Stark. I am a senator for the off-campus students here. The only question I really do have is, so it's very obvious Israel has committed some war crimes, not even some, like a bunch of heinous war crimes, as well as Hamas. And it seems like one cannot really be worse than the other because people are dead regardless. You know, a man that drowns 7 feet deep in water is just as dead as a man who drowns 20 feet deep. They're both dead. Is there a way, and forgive me if I'm being too forward, that maybe we can make a change to the resolution denouncing both Hamas as well as Israel? Or are you more so focused on what is happening right now as of this moment? And I'm pretty sure you've probably answered this question. It's a lot to process given that there's a lot of gray area in this conflict, and it's also outside of our country. So it's a lot to process going through how many people are dying and what is happening, and the military power and separation of powers and trying to take over land, essentially.
I appreciate the perspective and the question. I would say, there's no difference in the depth of water you drown in, but there's a difference if it's one man who's dead, or if it's 100, or if it's 500, or if it's more. I think we can condemn violence as such. We can condemn attacks as such. I think the reason that we've chose to focus on this in particular is twofold. One, because a resolution that details all this and says, oh, also Hamas is bad too, may not do such a thing justice. Again, for those interested, for those asking such questions, you have the democratic power to propose a resolution of your own, and we'd encourage you to do so. But second is the violence that we've talked about here is so disproportionate. There is only one side that has bombed and leveled the entire other side to dust in an effort to wipe them off the face of the earth. Again, an act of war does not and cannot possibly justify genocide because nothing can justify genocide.
All right, we have a little bit of time left, so hands in the air for questions, hands in the air. Let's see, up here, are you a student senator? Okay, I see we've had some people in the back who have had their hands up for a while. Have you asked a question yet? No, okay, we'll get the catch box over to you. And this will be our last question before speaker's time has expired.
Hi, my name is Yael Gilad. And my question is, what does passing this resolution actually do for the Palestinian people?
That's a very good question. I think we've spoken on how the U.S. is the one arming Israel, aiding and abetting in this genocide, defending it from international scrutiny, and so on. And so passing this in an American university, I think, is by itself quite powerful. And we have connections to Palestine. So condemning it as this institution in particular, as this powerful institution in particular, is important. But I think for what it does for Palestinians immediately, I brought the image of a Palestinian child thanking Columbia students who were protesting last April. And that child may be dead at this point. They may be under the rubble. I see that image in my head and I don't want to fail that child. Because when I see the hundreds, thousands of children who didn't make it to their first year, who have been killed thus far, when I think of the children who have to suck on bags of flour because the water is too contaminated because their mothers can't provide, that's what I think we do this for. We do this not just to send a signal to our powerful institutions, but to those who are victims of this genocide, that we haven't forgotten about them, that we're not ignoring them, and that we are there for them to the extent that we can be.
All right, speaker's time has now expired. If there is no motion to extend time, we will proceed to the next order of debate, which is either speeches in oppositions or speeches in opposition or a motion to vote. All right, are these hands up for speeches in opposition? Okay, we're just gonna do everyone who, hold on one second, meetings at ease.
At ease.
Which one of you wants to go first? You? Okay.
Chris, are they coming to the front or do you want us to
Yes.
pass them a catch box?
Presentation's done, thank
I
you.
love that ease.
We'll have the speaker in opposition come up. Are you sure? Because we'll have questions afterwards. Do you want to extend it to 10?
Yeah, we have
Okay.
other speakers too. Maybe if they
Yeah,
could
yeah.
help answer questions with me since they also have a group up here. Maybe we'll have one person.
Yeah, sure. No, we had multiple people up for presentations. I can accept multiple people up
We
here
have
for.
multiple speakers too.
Yeah. We'll get to them in turn. It has to go speech in opposition, speech in favor, unless there's a motion to suspend the rules. Do you have a presentation or are you just speaking from your paper? Okay, cool.